Welcome everyone. How we doing? Hope everybody had a good weekend. Damn, Lambos hit up hymns and had a good weekend apparently. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those stories flying around, little rate cut in September. I don't doubt it. I mean, I was saying June or July forever. So welcome everybody. We'll just give it a couple more minutes and we'll get to rolling here pretty quick. How's everybody doing? Good weekend? Is that the article you sent? Lambos, the Wall Street Journal guy? I recognize his name just from a couple he writes about the Fed sometimes, or maybe more than I know. It was a good weekend. Ah, nice. Good weekend for me, Gail. Yeah, happy 4th of July. Bitcoin is. Never even looked at that thing. Oh wow. Uh, yeah, it's down there, huh? Man, it's got a ways to go. So those buyers shot. These are futures prices, so they probably aren't, what anybody cares about, but yeah, it's not looking so hot. I don't know what the real Bitcoin price is. As I said, these are probably wrong for what it actually is, but they want to be back over that if you're bullish on that thing. Smoking it right now, huh? Chen, how we doing? And we'll get going here in just one more second. Nice long weekend for you. Love to hear that. Long weekends are good. It's a hot weekend where I'm at. We're above 100 degrees. Nice, Christian. Happy to have you. New lifetime member. Love seeing that. There's uh, uh, there's a lot to learn in here. We got some really, really awesome traders. There's you gotta learn the lay of the land, of course. But once you figure out who the people worth listening to in here are, there's some really, really good folks worth learning from if you can. Yeah, and if you ever got questions, and this goes for everybody, I say it all the time. Uh, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to answer them. That's what I'm here for. People always message me and they say things like, "Oh, I've wanted to And I've wanted to message you forever, but didn't want to bug you. Don't ever feel like that. I'm literally here to help all of you. That's what I'm here for. So, never be scared to just shoot me a message and I'll happily talk to you about whatever it is. Okay, and give me 1 second and we will get to rolling. Okay, so welcome everybody. Happy to have y'all. Oh, when is Clean River returning? Oh man, the guy got wrapped up. He's doing 25 to life. We might never see him again. You got to ask Tilio about that. So welcome everybody. Happy to have you here. Dirty River Sunday night charting. Joe had some stuff going on this weekend, so I'm just hopping in and covering for him. I love doing these charting classes just to kind of talk about some of the things that I'm watching in the market. We'll talk a couple of stocks. We're going to start with SPY and QQQ, obviously, and another one to just kind of get a good read on the market. That's what I like to always encourage people to do on Sundays is just look at what the market's been doing, see who's making money, are bulls making money, are bears making money, who's making money, and try to look for some trades that maybe, you can hop on that train. As all of you know, I like to trade in the direction that the market is going. So obviously the market has been going up really nonstop for the better part of 2 years now. And so, I mean, at least a year and a half now. And so I like to look for dips to buy. I like to look for long trades. When the market was going down all of 2022, obviously we were looking for some shorts to bounce or some, rips to short. Well, this whole market has basically just been buy the dip. And then for all of us, we're lucky. I mean, lucky or not lucky, most of us trade tech names. And so if the main things that you focus on are actually tech names, then you've been having a great time in this market. You can basically buy dips on any of the popular names and make some money on it. And so today we're just going to talk about a few trades that I'm looking at, obviously on a couple of tech names, and we'll talk SPY and QQQ, and then should have plenty of time for some ideas that you all have. We've had some really, really great trades given out, just ideas that people brought up in here. And that's something that I think is really, really important on these Sunday night scans or anytime we do a charting classes, looking at some of your ideas. There's, I don't know how many, 10,000 stocks or whatever to trade on the market. Most of us watch about 10 of them. So if you ever have your eyes on something a little different, a little unique, I'm always happy to look at that type of thing. You guys all know I like to trade some of the slower movers, your AT&T's, Coca-Cola, Pfizer, stuff like that. So if you ever have your eyes on something that we don't normally watch, I know one of the trades we got in here that was an awesome one was a Walmart trade. I think there was a super awesome Home Depot trade. So by the end of the class, we'll be able to get into a few of those. I'm just going to see if I got any questions here. I do terrible at staying up with the chat for anybody who doesn't know. When charting per day trading, do I look for entries on the 4 hour, 5 minute? I basically I look for my levels, my places of interest, all of that on the daily. I do go down to the 4 hour. We're going to obviously look at some 4 hour things today because one of the stocks that we're going to talk about is Apple. And so because Apple is, absolutely flying, it's setting new all-time highs over and over again. There's not a lot of data. So, I mean, we can pull it up just real quick. We'll get to Apple after we do SPY and QQQ. But when you look at the Apple daily chart, there is no information up here. So really what we have to go to for any sort of levels is either going to be the 4 hour, or as you can see after the move we made last Friday, we didn't pick up a lot of levels, even drop it down to that hourly and look for some of those bounce places, look for places that we might potentially want to buy the dip on it. So that's how, generally speaking, I'm looking on the hour or the daily and the 4 hour for any of my levels. But in some situations, you might have to go all the way down to the hourly just to find some tradable levels that maybe you want to base some of your trades around. So it really does really depend on what type of trades you're doing. Do I use cheddar flow or unusual whales? I personally don't. I think I think that for most people, flow is not a very good thing because they'll get tied up in, little trades or whatever it might be and get, get kind of single-minded on them. And so it's something that I say, I'll just use voice chat as an example. Flips does an unbelievable job at sitting patiently and waiting and looking for actually large orders to come in. The other day I was sitting in voice chat and I heard somebody say, "Oh, huge orders coming in on SPY." That one was $50,000. And in the world of SPY, $50,000 means absolutely nothing. So if you are going to use flow, you need to understand it better. We have a couple really good flow people in here. Noodle's a good flow person. Obviously, Tilio is absolutely unbelievable at flow. Joe is good at identifying flow, but there's just so much background information on what goes on. The Tilio's tab has been really awesome for some of those flow alerts lately because it's flow that matters and it's flow that meets Tilio's parameters. He doesn't just see, oh, somebody bought 50,000 contracts of this, I'm going to post about it. He sees, oh, somebody bought these contracts, then he pulls up the chart, then if he's not familiar with the stock, he reads about the stock. And so flow can be helpful, but I also think it can really get you a little stuck on something that maybe you shouldn't care about. Just a prime example, GameStop. There was mountains of GameStop long flow pouring in while it plummeted and all of those contracts went to zero. So you really need to be careful on what you're seeing in there. Okay, and with that, we will get to rolling. So tonight we're going to start with SPY. Um, This is our chart that we've just kind of been trading around for the last little bit. We drew this one up in class, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and just kind of the levels that we've been trading around. Obviously, we talked about big range bound movement for about a week and a half. And then going into last week, we were starting to look for that breakout that ultimately did come, big, strong move off of it. However, there is something that I wanted to put this one up. There is something that I wanted to point out that is just something to have your eyes on. This is a big breakout. There's no denying that this is, a big breakout. God, I mean, SPY ripped what, $12 or something like that off of these lows. Yeah, $12 off of the lows in 3 days. So really, really nice move out of that thing. No denying it. But for me personally, and I think volume's huge. I think if somebody tells you don't use volume, don't listen to them anymore because they likely are missing a very, very important part of the market. And without volume, the market can't do anything. Market is what controls any movement or volume is what controls any movement in the market. So you can of course have days where we have, relatively speaking, low volume like we've had lately, where you can put in really big moves. But they're happening on low volume. So you'll just kind of see that steady grind up all day or grind down all day. You won't have the big volatility moves and consolidations to buy and things like that. Those low volume days will be much more of a grind. And for me, obviously for the last, month and a half or so, the volume has really, really dropped off in the market. However, we're seeing nice big breakout. I would have loved to see, no denying strong buying volume. I would have loved to kind of see some high volume days on this breakout. We spent 3 weeks or so, I don't know exactly how long, really trying to break that 550 level. And we were never able to break it. And so for me, I really would have loved to see a nice big volume day on this. Obviously, it's the summer. You aren't always going to get those kind of things. I'm obviously not bearish or anything like that. However, it did give me enough worry that I didn't, and I won't say worry, but that I didn't want to swing long on this. It was just, this wasn't a setup for me that I was really looking for to swing long on. However, with the break of this big 550 level, we're still buying dips. We've been buying dips. We will continue to buy dips, especially in tech. And so we've seen this nice big breakout, nice big move. This was all tech. So we do want to be a little cautious unless we really start seeing the market expand into some other sectors, which is what I'm going to kind of show it here in just a second. Without seeing that expansion into other sectors, then I would like to see a pullback to buy. I'm not going to be diving into longs at open unless we can get a nice substantial pullback, $2, $3, $4 pullback. I would really like to try some longs again at the retest of 550 for that lower risk entry. Obviously, you can kind of try to take them off, whatever this was, Wednesday highs, because we had that break last week. You can try to buy them there as well. Plenty of dip buying areas that you can try to get in there at, but I do recommend being cautious. And so I just want to bring up something that Tilio's been posting about. I had always kind of avoided posting about it, but we talked about it in my class last week or 2 weeks ago. And what this is RSP. And so this is equal weight of the S&P 500. For anybody who doesn't know what SPY is, it's an ETF. It holds shares of stocks. That's why, you get Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, Nvidia moving, then you see SPY move really, really big. Well, when we see RSP like this, and it did put in a nice reversal day, ended the day green, ended on slightly higher volume, ended with buyers winning the day, but we're still seeing the equal weight of the S&P pretty well go sideways because this isn't heavily tech weighted. This is just everybody's treated equally. And so we want to see a nice push on this. And what that will show us is just that there's some expansion into the rest of the market. For anybody who doesn't know, there's a bunch of sectors of SPY. Those are, when I talk about XLF or XLE, that's the financial sector of SPY. That's the, XLE is the energy sector of SPY or the spiders. And so when we see RSP just sideways, holding lows, but not really pushing, we know that there's very few things in the market moving us upwards. And right now it happens to be tech. And with those heavy weightings in tech, it can really get to moving. But I would love to see, and I'll be watching this week for some expansion on RSP. I would love to see a nice little breakout of this trend. I'm not going to say we're going to get a break of this range, but I would love to see us push back up to this high 166 and see some expansion into the rest of those sectors. And why do I want to see that? Because if we see that and then we go to SPY and we see this breakout holding, that gives us a lot more, encouragement to say, okay, stay long, keep buying dips, keep looking at other sectors, take advantage of the expansion in the market so that we're able to buy dips more safely. So that's what I'm watching for on SPY and QQQ. As I said, I'm still buying the dip. I'm not going to be diving into the longs at open. I personally would love to see a little bit of a pullback to then dive into some longs with some tighter stops on it, but we'll have to see how it plays out tomorrow. And then obviously tech, going to be looking about the exact same. I do think that likely having a trend somewhere around here is worth doing. Oh, I did forget one thing I want to say on SPY. Obviously, safe place to be looking short on SPY. I don't want to say safe necessarily, but we start pushing up to this 558, 557 area. I'll be looking to probably try a few shorts. Obviously not turning bearish on the market, but playing a bit of a technical rejection. I think for us to push up there, we'll have to see that expansion, and maybe the rejection will not look as friendly if we're really seeing buying across the market. But that's the place where you really want to start to look to maybe get a little bit longer term short. I did swing a couple of cheaper couple week out SPY puts on the close on Friday just to see what happens, but not expecting too much pullback just yet. And then tech, basically same story. Obviously we can get a few more levels on here because same deal, breakout came. So tech super strong. All the big names are buying. We got Apple ripping, Amazon ripping. I mean, Apple had a 7%, 6% week last week, something like that. AMD, huge mover. We're going to talk that one here pretty soon. I think it did 13, 12% off of the lows last week. So big move out of AMD. Finally found some interest for the first time in quite a while, but coming up to an important place. But tech, I'm sitting the same place, other than as it's a little bit easier. I don't want to say easier to trade than SPY, but it is a little bit easier to trade than SPY due to the fact you have to watch less things. If you have your eyes on, your Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google, what QQQ is going to do. If they are all buying, then you can feel pretty safe buying those dips. If there is any dips on the Qs, if they're all selling, then you can look to, scalp some puts. I still, as always, as I encourage you in all of my classes, puts they should be short-term trades. We're in a strong bull market. Nobody cares if you catch a nice, short trade for a couple of days because the dip buyers are making more money. So if you are going to short things, always treat them as, day trades or even scalps to hopefully funnel that money to some long trades because obviously the longs are what's paying really well in the market. So it's the side that you want to stick with. And so that's just my basic rundown, real easy on these names. And now we're going to get into a few of the things that I'm watching. Obviously, the first one that I want to talk about, because we kind of touched on it earlier, is Apple. And then I didn't want to do, I think, we're just going to do a new one for us. So Apple's kind of a tricky one to trade right now. Because of where we're trading. So, as all of you know from all of my lectures, anytime I'm doing support and resistance, I always just want to look for any sort of major highs, major lows, and any sort of breakout areas. Obviously, we broke above these two major highs once we worked through that little zone we had from a few weeks ago, beginning of June, middle of June, it looks like. Once we'd broken through that little zone, buyers showed back up on the back of that Apple event, whenever it was, somewhere back here. We have seen nothing but buyers on this thing. I mean, it is putting in just the run of a lifetime on Apple, some of the largest daily candles I've ever seen printed on Apple. And so very, very tradable. I'm also liking Apple more because as it's become more valuable, as we've cracked above the 200, above the 220 areas, this thing's starting to move better. It used to be very, very common for Apple to move, a buck or whatever in a day, buck 50 in a day. Well, now we're starting to see those, $2 moves of a more expensive stock. And so Apple been very, very tradable. However, I was kind of touching on this a little bit earlier, and so now we're going to get back to it. Not a lot of levels around. So for us, all I am really ever concerned about, it doesn't really matter the time frames that I'm on. I always want to have my eyes on any sort of consolidation. People hate ranges in the market, and it's just something I've never understood. Not only do I like trading ranges, but ranges give us big moves. If the market can consolidate, then we can typically get a breakout. If we're in this hourly chart, we can see we had a little bit of consolidation here, a couple of buck range to finally provide us a nice $5, $6 move. That's how the market works. We consolidate until the market decides where it wants to go. And so then we take trades around it. And so for me, Apple is a super, super easy chart on here. I'll put these levels on here just for anybody who wants to keep track of them. And they're a little bit easier to see. Should probably take the opening range off too, just to get it out of the way. Any dip down into this, 225.60 all the way down to really even some touches below 224.80, 224.50. Any dip down into that area is where I'll be looking to get long on this thing. It is tricky to kind of figure out price targets on things that are trading at all-time highs. You can use things like, I love to use B bands. A lot of people love to use fibs, whether it's, using some of the opposite end extensions or using some of the opposite end retraces, whatever it may be, however you like to do it. Those can provide very, very good levels. For me, the easiest way to find any sort of level is just look for whole numbers. Mark these 227s, mark these 228s. And then if we are to push up, and I'm not saying we're going to 230, if we come to something like 230, that is where you want to start to tread a little bit more lightly. Whole numbers will frequently provide you some sort of reaction. The more major ones, your 225s, your 230s, your 220s, whatever those are typically going to hold you, or they will be stronger support or stronger resistance depending on where you come. And so I really like to just watch those hold numbers. And so for me, any of these dips down to this 224 area is really likely going to be that place where I'm looking for entry. And then ultimate target is really going to be that 230 zone. As far as do we push up there? Who knows? But I do think that 230 is coming sooner than later. Something just to point them out for anybody who's ever used Bollinger Bands, and I'll get everything else off just so you can look at these real quick for people who haven't used them. So these are Bollinger Bands. They're typically pretty ugly. What they can show you is, expansions in momentum or volatility, or they can kind of offer you some shorter, some areas to watch as potential resistance. And so when I was getting ready and looking at things here a few hours ago, this was something that I pulled up on Apple that I did think was worth noting, that we are pushing up, up to this, 227.50-ish area on this band. That is a pretty likely area to at least see a pullback. There's a very common misconception with Bollinger Bands that if we touch it, short it. That is not necessarily true. If we're really pointed up and we know momentum is up and strong, this can really just show us that buyers are strong. We can see here anybody that was trying to catch these shorts was likely really not catching it until a few days later. They had to suffer a little bit of pain before they were able to actually see some profit on it. But Bollinger Bands can just be a really, really nice, simple to use tool to pull up and get some potential targets when you're trading at those all-time highs. So this is about my trade plan on Apple, nice and I mean, simple one. Buy the dips down into this little zone. And then, of course, if we break below it, we do have some nice lower targets. Obviously we put in huge moves here, but break that 224.80, we likely see 223.83, and then it won't be surprising to see us pull back to this 221.76. Obviously, still staying bullish on Apple. Just because you see a red day or you see a pullback, when a name like Apple puts in the move that it's put in, I don't even know what it's done now, 20% in a month and a half or something. When you see a thing move like that, eventually a pullback will come, but it should be treated as a buying opportunity. It should, at least in my opinion, it should not be treated as, uh, 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 the end is near turn bearish opportunity. It should be treated as a buy that dip opportunity. So nice simple trade on Apple for me. I'll definitely have my eyes on that one going into tomorrow. Hopefully get a little pullback early and be able to get in there. Next one I'm watching, AMD. This is again another chart that we've had from class. We can obviously get rid of this trend line now, fully out of use to us. We'll take the B band off because again, we're expanded outside of it, but they're just sideways. So you want to be careful with that. And we look at AMD. We've been watching this range going on 2 months now. Looks like started beginning of May, basically. We are finally trying to have some pushes outside of it. Obviously, we missed this level. Should have been on there. Ultimately ended up being pretty close to the top. However, we are finally seeing some attempted breaks of this consolidation. I mean, we drew that thing all the way out and it had to get to the end before it finally started bouncing. For me, we're finally starting to see buyers on AMD. I think there's basically three potential trades on it right now. This, I don't want to say safest one, but the safest one is going to be a break of this 174.80, 175 area, and then holding it. We don't want to, when we talk about trades like this and we're looking at them on the daily time frame, because I get my levels off the daily and then I trade those on things like the 5 and the 15 minute. If we get a break of that and we get a couple few candles holding, 5 15 minute candles holding outside of there, giving us some nice consolidation above it, maybe a break and a pullback to it, that's where, in my opinion, the safest entry is going to be on AMD. The other, and that is a trade that if it comes up, I will definitely take, because if it does get to ripping, and I'm not going to say that it's going to instantly do it, but the moves that AMD likes to put in, we crack that area and would likely see the 180 pretty quickly, at least in my opinion. The other trade, the one that I like slightly less, and the reason that I like it slightly less is going to be pullbacks to the top of this range. They offer a buy. But we have to remember that while we did get some nice big buying out of AMD, if we, you know, if we had extended our range up a little bit, we are still within the range of that it's been trading in. So if we're pulling back to here, we might just have sellers showing up on AMD right now. AMD is suffering from, a pretty serious situation. And what that situation is, it's not NVIDIA. That alone is hurting AMD pretty bad, in my opinion. No, it's not NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the easy place to put your money that is doing pretty unbelievable things, quarter after quarter. And so while I like this dip buy, I don't love this dip buy. The third trade that we have the potential on AMD, and I should have had this one on here the whole time, is going to be this nice whole 170 number, top of range. Break back into here, likely offers a pretty decent short all the way down to the bottom of the range. And so a few ways to trade it right now. I just don't personally want to be, I don't want to be on the short side of it, because I do think AMD is due for a bounce sooner than later. So while I think it could happen, I'm just treading lightly on AMD. The trade that I want long on it is definitely this one above 175. However, if you are, a bottom fisher and you like to buy those dips, then I think 170 offers you a nice opportunity. But as always, you need to admit you're wrong. And if you're wrong and we're really starting to see some selling and maybe we're getting, some hourly closes or whatever it is, or even 30-minute closes with inside of this range again, then you might want to reconsider your trade and take the stop out for the smaller loss if given the opportunity. See, got a couple. Can I just realized that I have questions that I haven't been answering. Can I demonstrate how to use the fib retracement? Yeah, we can show that here in a second. DE, remind me, Phantom. We'll check that one out at the end. Beto, nice to see you. Been a while. Can I share the buy versus sell volume? It is pinned in my tab. If it's not pinned in my tab, I think it's pinned in my tab. If it's not in there, it is for sure pinned in Toasties as well. Disney, yep, we can talk that one. NVIDIA, we can talk about. Raphael. Yeah, so it could. What Raphael's question is for anybody who didn't see it is, could the range be the top of this candle? It could. It could also be the top of this candle. It could also be the top of this candle. This is where I drew my range. And it's been sitting here like this for, like I said, since the beginning of May, months now. Within these candles, I had this drawn. And I think I drew it from, maybe these lows down here up to what I thought was going to be a double top. We did take a nice gap up and then pulled down. So I drew my range here, and I treat ranges like trend lines. You don't want to adjust them to your bias. And so I view these three candles personally as failed breakouts of that range. Whether that's correct or not, that's just how I like to treat things. If you do it differently and it works for you, then awesome. But I like to view these as failed breakouts. So that's another thing that I should touch on with AMD. Is all of you know, I love statistics in the market. One of the statistics I follow pretty heavily is 80% of breakouts fail. So when we see kind of, some test here, some test here, some test here, you could even make an argument for a test here, but we won't say because it didn't fully come out. But we have our fourth attempt. And those fourth, fifth attempts of breakouts, they like to hold. So that is the reason that I brought up the AMD trade as opposed to just saying, hey, this could be a double top shorted. I think that it is at a point, technically on the chart that be prepared for both directions is the best thing that you can do on AMD. And then again, when we come into these shorter time frames tomorrow, if we do get this breakout over 174.84, like I said, I would love to see a break above, pull back to it, try to buy it there, stops below. You can obviously try the 170 bounce. This is the hourly 20 for anybody who doesn't know. If this hourly 20 ends up riding right here at 170 tomorrow going into open, I'll like that dip by a little bit more with tight stops below. And then again, loss of 170, loss of this hourly 20, maybe if it lines up for us, we can start to look for some short trades on AMD as well. So really, great one in a great place to trade, at least for how I trade. Whether you want to be short or long does not matter, but really, really great one to be having your eyes on right now. Next one, Amazon, something everybody's watching right now. Obviously we know where resistance is on Amazon. We also have multiple trends working in our favor. I'm not going to leave this one on here, but obviously here's the more major of the trends. The next trend that I have my eyes on is basically right here. So, pretty parabolic move, obviously $16 on Amazon pretty quickly. Extremely valuable stock, $16 move on something like that is huge. They closed us on the money. Lambo's pointed this one out to me, on the money 200 last week. And so we have a very easy place to trade right here. And to me, it's this area. If you are buying calls before we are seeing volume above this 200, then I think you're doing it wrong. That's not a safe trade. That is not a smart trade. We saw it last week. I even put a line on the chart of right here is where somebody said Amazon calls. And as we can see, maybe if they held through this, maybe they made a couple bucks a couple days later, but really there's no chance they made any money on this trade because you don't want to buy here. That is buying calls at resistance. You want to look for the break above. However, there's a second side of that. Just because we are at resistance does not mean that you should be looking to short it. If something's, the strongest thing around, why even put the risk on of a short when it's been very strong? You don't want to, get caught in one of these big blowout days that Amazon's been putting on lately. We had that one beginning of last week. Gap, we were down bad for 2 days and we ultimately end up buying and ripping for 2 days. So I'm not saying be short here. However, we can start to see some consolidation at this 200 area. Then, and this trend, you guys know I love trends, and I only like kind of care about this trend. If we break this, when the new candle opens tomorrow, we'll be outside a trend. That doesn't mean I'm looking short on Amazon. I know that might be a little bit weird, but I just wanted to, put that out there. Breaks above that 265 area, 255 area, I'll start to look for some calls above it. Otherwise, I would love to see a couple of days of consolidation to either say, okay, sellers are showing up for a move back down, or buyers are accumulating for another move up. This is one place somebody asked about flow earlier. This is one of those situations where you actually could probably use flow to your advantage and say, if we are getting a little bit of a pullback, look for some of those, couple month out or month and a half out in the money contracts to really start pouring in. And that's how you'll know that you very likely have big money's interest in the trade as well. And so Amazon, another one, great place to trade. I should probably slap a couple more levels on here and we're going to do it on the 4 hour. Any major lows, any major highs, I want to have my eyes on just to have a couple more levels around here. So obviously just marking some lows, marking some highs, and then back to the daily. And the picture is pretty clear that we are still in dip buy mode on Amazon. And look for that breakout. It's something, I definitely really got my eyes on, something that I think could continue to rip. My buddy Zach and I were talking, I don't know, end of last year sometime, maybe even beginning of this year, just saying that, this is likely going to be a really good year for Amazon. And thus far, this year out of Amazon has not disappointed even remotely. So really, really beautiful moves on it, putting up some great earnings. Definitely a place to, especially after a nice big consolidation, big breakout. Let's try to keep this thing going. Really, really like that trade. Okay, next one for me, T. You guys know I've been trading it like crazy. Obviously, we were unable to fill the gap that we were looking for. Offered some really nice short trades last week. However, we are now finding ourselves right down here. And so what this is, and I got to zoom out a little bit more. I think I need a few years on there. So what this is, old earnings gap. And so I love gaps. I mean, they can just, they can provide really explosive movement, as we saw when we finally got back in there. This is the first time we've touched this area in well, a year since, last April or May, so a year plus. This is the first time we found ourselves into this zone. We had nice strong buying. They sold us back basically to the bottom of the zone. So I'm already in it. I took a little nibble on some month out 19 calls. They're super cheap. I actually ended Friday red on them because I chased it. I don't know. I bought basically one of these peaks on it and then it pulled back on me. So I ended just like a couple of bucks red on him. But AT&T at a really, really nice place where I think if we're able to hold this, we should get a nice push up. Again, not saying we're going to fill the gap, but we got, a dollar's worth of upside, which is plenty to make some money on AT&T. And then if we sell, we do have this nice support down here around this 1850 where, the breakout that sold back down to the retest on the breakout. I will definitely be taking a little stab there again long. Super easy trade. These are ones that you can just kind of let cook for a little bit and not, you don't put a ton of risk on them. These AT&T is I don't want to say it's a hard thing, but it's not the type of thing that you go in and you buy 200 contracts of because, there might only be 1,000 OI on those contracts. So you don't want to be huge in trades like this. They're just a nice lower risk trade that can give you a real nice percent return on them. So I think AT&T just offering a very, very nice opportunity here for some of those low risk trades. And so that's it for me. Let's get through a few of them. I know we've been having people send questions. I saw Lambo say Bitcoin's knifing, so I didn't want to look just for fun. Yeah, it'd be selling, huh? Taking a little bounce, but it'd be selling. But since some of those trades that we were looking at, Toasty's just been nonstop in the DMs about crowd. And let's see why he's so obsessed with crowd. Strong consolidation. I'm not a buyer here, but on that breakout I might be. But I just don't love the breakout here. What's up with that volume? What was that day? Something went on with it. Something went on with it. I mean, I really do like to see that big buy right there. But I wonder what went on. I wonder if there's news or something that I need to go back and look at, but let's zoom out here. But for me, for right now, we are just basically like, real tight range at resistance. That's some nice support down here. But this would really, the range here is my main concern. This one's just real tricky for me, Nerd Toasty. I don't love it personally because you could get this breakout and you could run, and maybe you take the first breakout of the trend for the early entry, front run it a little bit. But really, the safer one's going to be a crack of this 395. And then I personally, am not buying calls $5 below 400 on something like crowd, because we could get a clobber down at 400. However, I don't want to deny that, it has a nice $9 potential move to there, but a little bit of resistance overhead. And by the time the resistance is cracked, 400 could be a pain, or we could just absolutely clobber it. But dip down to this trend, you start giving me some entries down here, 385 area. That is where I would like to be getting in that trade. Or if you're already in it, obviously still write it. Nice buying on it. I wish that I could see the volume without that one. I mean, just not like, it's apparently just a pretty low volume thing, huh? I never trade crowd, but not a terrible one. Not a terrible one. Scares me buying at 400 though. Oh yeah, you'd take a big trim, massive trim at 400. Yep, there's Toasty crowd. IWM. We'll check IWM out. Yeah, I like to have my eyes on that one. I haven't really looked at it in a while. Oops. I was making fun of somebody. Here we go. IWM. Well, this was the multiple year consolidation on IWM, and we're just riding the top of it. I mean, for the last couple of months, these dip buys down to 200 have worked. I will say, and I'm happy you brought this up, because I've talked a lot about IWM, and I'm a firm believer that, well, once we get a rate cut, the market, at least in my opinion, it's going to sell. We're going to get a sell-off. I don't know how big it'll be. I don't know how long it'll last. But if, history repeats itself, then we'll likely see a sell-off after the rate cut. But then we will see buying, and then we will see expansion into the market. And in my opinion, the number one place that we're going to see buying is places like IWM, the small caps, because, don't get me wrong, there are some small caps out there that have put in some really, really like big moves this year. As a whole, the small cap market is just not rallying. And so I do think having your eyes on IWM is definitely worth doing. But for now, technically speaking, trend is likely down on the shorter time frame. Obviously, nice strong uptrend on the longer time frame. This is the weekly chart for anybody who doesn't know. But holds of 200 are definitely worth that dip buy, but you aren't looking for the breakout. You're just looking for a move upside is really all you're looking at on IWM, at least in my opinion. Now we'll look at the daily. I mean, yeah, you want to see some buying off of this trend showing up here pretty soon. Otherwise, we could get a nice retrace down here, it's 190 area. And then I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer of the dips on IWM, because I don't think we have any business going down to the bottom of the range. I think just, wait for some, actually, I mean, Lambo sent me that story today that we got somebody saying rate cut news. And so IWM could be a runner tomorrow on just, that word. What do we got here? Target for longs, huh? Ooh. Tricky. Not a good looking chart. Not a good looking chart. We get a couple levels on here. That's gonna be some. Ah, man. I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm just not a buyer on target here. A dip down to 140, I think is pretty likely. And then you can shoot for this triple bottom right here, stops under 138 or so. You can try to catch that triple bottom and maybe finally see some buyers show up on this thing. We obviously, we are seeing an uptick in volume. We're seeing an uptick in buyer volume, even though, we're still technically going down. We look back here and there's, this is super simple volume analysis for anybody who wants just something super simple to look at. This looks more red. This looks more green. So we know a few buyers are showing up. I know that's like oversimplifying volume massively, but it can tell you what side you want to be on. I think that with some buyer volume showing up like this, some dips down to 140 might be worth a chance. I would just be a little, I would be a little tentative buying it here personally. That's just me though. But leaps, set and forget, if you buy enough time. Elf. Somebody asked about Elf. I mean, I gotta be honest, I probably just, I mean, there's no denying it's setting a double top-ish right here. I don't know anything about this stock though, so I really hate to give any sort of analysis on it. But technically speaking, at least in my opinion, it does seem to be giving up trends. It's set a double top. I would personally, yeah, trading right at a whole psychological number. You do like to see that. They fought to hold it. Let's see what that price action looked like on Friday. Boring. But they fought to hold that 200 pretty good. They were not going to give that one up into close, which is what you want to see. But I would look for some retraces down a little bit personally. Nvidia. We got always with the joke, always with the jokes on there, huh? Let's do yeah, this one's probably bad. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Nvidia, we talked this one last week. I think we talked this one somewhere on this day. Oops, I didn't draw my range where I wanted it. We talked it somewhere on this day, and we basically said, we wanted dips down to 117. Was where we were looking to buy the dip on this thing. We obviously did not get all the way there. Some of these next lows that we would have been watching around here moves up to here. Really a nice little range right there. And then obviously the highs where we should have basically had no interest in being long on this thing, but it's Nvidia. So you don't want to be bearish on it. And again, you want to treat areas of consolidation as just an absolute gift, because if you zoom out, people everybody remembers the huge moves that Nvidia makes, but they ignore the frequent months of consolidation in a range before those big moves come. I'm not going to say that we're going to start consolidating for a month. I mean, I'm still a dip buyer down to 120, down to 117, looking for those bounces up. But I would love to see Nvidia spend, that until maybe mid-August, kind of trading in this range, maybe some attempted breaks up or down, but continue just trading in this range and, trade it. Buy these dips down here, short these rips up to here, and do that until it quits working. Is at least in my opinion the best way to be trading Nvidia right now. If we get this breakout, even really over 130, look for a push to some new highs. But tread lightly on some longer term swings unless you're really buying these dips or shorting these rips, and give your trades a little bit of time to work. PLTR. I'm not long, I'll tell you that much. I'm sure there's people arguing for a cup and handle right now, but 2750. I mean, we see the line in the sand. Pretty simple. We got to get about 2750 to see that 29. That's what we have to see. But as of right now, and maybe we take a gap over it, great if we do. But as of right now, you're just buying calls at a double top, which I personally never would. I'm not saying short PLTR. There has been some big flow on it. Obviously, big volume on Friday. I saw that happening. But for me, currently it's a double top as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not going to be chasing the long up here or anything like that after the $7 run after the last few weeks, you know. But offer some potential trades, whether you want to try to short it up here with the stops above. And then if you're wrong, flip around those and you can try to get long pushes up to 28, 29 area, you know, that 29, 23 area. But I don't have a ton of interest long here. No, not a ton of interest short either, but definitely some trades to be had on it if you want to take them. CMG, huh? Um, I haven't even, so I'm not, I have a pretty strict rule about post split. I'm going to give things like a month to work. But I mean, there's trades to be had, but the reshuffling of shares that occurs, and we're seeing it. Look at this volume post split versus pre split. I mean, we see it increasing, obviously, because splits get announced and they start running, you know, but this is a serious reshuffling of shares. A 50-to-1 split is huge. And so this isn't what all people will do, but one of the reasons that you can see some selling after a split is because say I had one share and now I have 50 shares. Well, I'm going to trim off some of those. You know, I'm going to book some profit and I'm going to get my position size back down to where I wanted to be. You know, maybe I only want to have, you know, maybe I had 10 shares and now I have 500 shares. Well, maybe I only wanted to have 10 shares. I'm going to sell 490 of my shares, you know? So that is one of the reasons that you can see some selling afterwards. No denying we're kind of coming to a nice breakout point where you could have taken a stab, potentially putting in a base, but pretty well just declining volume with more selling going on. I would want to see a nice little consolidation at this 60, break this trend for a move upside. Obviously, if it comes sooner, you can look for it to move up to maybe 65 area, some of these previous highs over here. But for me, post split, I like to let things work. Disney, it's destroyed, demolished, done for, you know? I mean, it's toast. So there's not a ton to be bullish on Disney of, obviously. We hit Disney. Well, we hit Disney a few times, but we hit Disney, we're off of these lows. Then this breakout come, and I made a post about it in my tab that, you know, frequently first breakout does not hold, especially on something that is in a strong downtrend. You know, I mean, at this point, Disney's down bad 20% or something off of highs. So technically in a bear market trend, you don't want to be the person trying to catch the bottom on Disney. I know a bunch of people are just completely blown out of the water right now, but the other thing to watch is this right here was the old gap. It was support. You know, there was no reason to be long. I know that some people are watching now, they're watching the SMAs or whatever, kind of grasping at straws. But you pull up these SMAs, you look at the old earnings gap. We've given up all support, given up all major SMAs. We have SMAs crossing under SMAs, and you know, they're all pointed down. I mean, 200 is kind of pointed up, but it is flattening. So there's no reason to be long Disney unless you're maybe trying to catch some scalps down here, 95 area off of this lower trend, or we're reclaiming the 200, reclaiming the gap, reclaiming the trend line, reclaiming the SMA. There's a lot of things to not be overly bullish on Disney on. Then you slap on dividend, and dividends can be really tricky because people will hold into the dividend and collect their dividend and then sell. And when Disney is down 20%, you know, going into this, you know, and it's been 6 months since their last dividend, and now people have lost a bunch of money, the dividend doesn't hold any weight. You're getting 45 cents per share and you're down $30 per share. So it doesn't help you, you know? So I won't be entirely surprised to see a bit more selling come after this dividend date, but that's just me. Tesla. Look at that thing. Just a beast. Really, just you know, that was like good old days Tesla. I didn't even catch any of it. I mean, we're coming into a point where we do have some more volume. There's been some trading. See, we were talking about SPY. This is the type of volume you want to see on the back of a breakout to believe that the breakout is going to keep going. And then the biggest thing on Tesla, and this is something that we have talked, Tesla is, technically speaking, for the first time since 2020, not in a downtrend, which is a really big deal. That shows a very big shift. Anytime we've come to this trend, obviously this one said it, but anytime we've come to this trend or anywhere near it, we have been clobbered. We haven't even, I guess maybe we peaked above it, but we have never been able to, well, for years now, been able to see buying above it. So for me, Tesla looking pretty good. I mean, obviously, like I'm not saying chase it up here, but we can start to look to buy dips on Tesla again for the first time in a really long time, which is pretty nice. Palo Alto. It wants that gap fill. We talked about this one. Love seeing this consolidation right there at that 340. Love to see that. That's really what I'd have my eyes on. It's basically just going to be this little range right here. Buy those dips all the way down to 335. Buy the breakout here, get you up to like 350 for a few bucks. And then if we can really, I mean, more than a few bucks, that thing will rip it. Then if we can really start pushing, look for this previous low, 353, all the way up to that 360. For the gap fill, once the earnings gap, obviously the earnings gap went all the way down to here, but fill the end of the gap that hasn't been filled. I like it. Are you who asked about this last week too, Mystery? Unfortunately, it hasn't done much for us. You could have bought these dips, but hasn't done much yet, but it is coming. Wow, Target no longer accepting personal checks. That's pretty funny. But I think they do like check cashing for people, so people probably hate that. ASTS, isn't that like pump and dump SpaceX competitor or something? Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't even know how to chart something like this. Is that all time? It's got to be all time on it. No? Well, I mean, I hate to draw a trend like this. That one's well broken out. I mean, not a lot of info on this chart, because it hasn't spent a ton of time up here. Yeah, now that we got some, how about these highs on there too? Slightly beat earnings on their miss. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wish I could give you more info on this, but it's kind of pump and dumpy-esque. But dips down to about 10. You can give them a shot. Risky being high up here, that close to that like strong breakdown level. But I mean, tradable down off that 1030-ish area, even down 1058 off of that SMA. Dips can be bought. You can risk the breakout, but there's people have been trapped, I mean, and not to say that they like actually held or anything, but people have been trapped since 2020 on these. So when you come to these big breakdown or breakout areas, you can frequently see some pretty big selling there. EWZ, another one I know. Nothing. Oh, the Brazil ETF. I actually have heard of this. Never traded it. Wow. Put in quite the base breakout there, huh? This is one that trading it technically likely very high risk. If you're trading the Brazil ETF, you probably kind of want to be up to date on the news in Brazil. I mean, not to like simplify it, but you probably do. No denying technical breakout occurring over this trend. Ooh, no, not over the trend. Trend would be a pretty nice target if you're already in there. Buy those dips down to 28-ish area. Stops below, obviously back into that range, and then target this trend. No saying, no guarantees the breakout comes, but if we're able to push up there, consolidate and push a little bit more, that would be pretty dang nice. Oh, Target has AI coming. That'll do it. Yeah, writing checks is funny. I wrote one the other week. It'd been a while. Netflix, let's check it out. Yeah, we got a few more minutes, no problems. Well, this was really a pretty sick buy from MMA. I was pretty proud of him on that one. Big breakout, putting in, looks like it's putting in another big old breakout for us. And I've just been trading these fib levels. Obviously, we have a couple, or watching these fib levels rather. I don't really trade Netflix. But look at that breakout. We see what we want to hold. That 688, 690 area. We want to see that get held. And then obviously we're pushing up here to a fib, pushing up here to 700, big whole psychological number. You obviously don't want to be buying calls up there. But if this little breakout holds, I really like that on those dip buys all the way down 685. If we break back below, Netflix moves enough to look for that 675 pullback. Not going to say it's going to come all the way, but it will offer a nice little short opportunity. We had that little tricky bounce in there, but break the trend. You can get yourself $7-8 drop out of that, I bet you. Nice one. Who asked for this? Ah, my guy. Good to have you here. You've been coming to all the classes. Good for you. Yeah, Noodle. There we go. PLTR. Oh, there you go, Nudes. Yeah, PLTR just ain't for me. Hey, huh? I haven't looked at that one in a long time. I didn't even know it was still trading. We got some levels on here. I wonder if this is from one of you. I used to trade this back here years ago. I traded AA quite a bit. Look at that though. I mean, on the weekly, reclaiming that 200 day for the first time in good amount of time. Really, that's the entry. You want to be trying to get in there around 40. You can, of course, we had a little micro pullback here, breakout with the retest. I don't love an entry here, but I do. It actually looks pretty dang good. Look at that weekly 20. That was the last time we were trading it. Maybe that was there or even here somewhere. I don't love it right now because you're just basically talking middle of a range. I know it's only a week long range or whatever. But watch for some of these bases to hold. Watch for us to hold above this 42, and you can start to look to try to get long. We can see a lot of people still trapped up here. So we will, I don't think that it's going to be just a straight path up for this. Ooh, earnings though, 10 days. Earnings could be what it needs to go up or continue its descent. Nvidia, trade the range. That was it. I see a person just asking that they missed it. Yeah, Disney. Nobody should be in Disney long anymore. Nice, Flacco. I remember that you hit some Tesla shares down there. Art K, that thing is just horrible. I don't even know. I mean, I don't know. I think that's one of the worst stocks on the market. Kathy couldn't hit a trade to save her life, the poor lady. I mean, you could make I mean, let's be real here. For 3 months now, short that 46 has been working. Stop above it. This is just another one. And she has started to diversify a bit from her just pump and dump, low float, small caps. But this is one that will move with rate cuts. It needs rate cuts. But for me, I'd be looking to be short here, back down to the 200, 20, 50, any of these, SMAs, and just trade this range. As long as it's in a range, trade the range. Maybe you can catch the breakout and catch that, I mean, what do you get? You get it 50 cents up. Might be able to catch that move, but this thing has just been like, it's horrible. Look at the chart overall. There's nothing to be overly bullish about on Art K just yet, or Art, any of them just yet, at least in my opinion. TTD, I used to like that one too. Look at that. I haven't traded it in a long time, huh? I think Papa Elon maybe used to hit this one. Well, wow. It's actually sort of interesting. Watch that 100. If it can, what did it do on Friday? Nicked it. Just couldn't hold it on that last candle of the day. Honestly, probably worth a stab off 100. The volume looking like slight increase in volume, steady buy-in on it. Would love a nice high volume day on a hold of 100. Good one. Who asked me for this? Right on, Nick. Like it. Yeah. Hold of 100, look for a nice little pop up there, 103-ish area, probably 103.25 maybe. SMCI, yeah, I got no interest in trading this thing. I mean, technically setting higher lows, can't deny it. You can try dips to 800, but those contracts are horrible. The liquidity on the stock is horrible. Like everything about this thing is just like rough to trade. You know, you're putting on huge risk trading SMCI contracts just because of how they trade. So for me, I don't know. I don't love it. I mean, it's holding 800. That's really all I can put for the, you know, what I like to try a bounce. But for me, it just doesn't hold a ton of interest. No denying that this thing loves to put in $100 days, but I wouldn't be entering it around here or anything like that. Man, we got a lot of requests still. Let's just keep them rolling. KO. I meant to talk this one earlier. This is actually what I want to talk. I'm looking short on KO, honestly. Stops over 64-ish. You could even push him up to the 64.20, but 50-cent move against you on a KO contract will hurt. But for me, I'm looking short until we can really get over these highs, and then I'll look for some longs. But shorting the bounces on KO has been working pretty good for quite a while now. Steven, I think we'll go back to AMD just for me to explain. What makes you think that it's just going to rally another $15? That's just super unrealistic, is what I think. Maybe it pushes. I hope it does. You might be in some 185 calls that you swung, and that's crazy, but I hope it runs for you. But for me, not personally feeling that one quite yet. Micron can't get it together. They just did not like that. They just haven't liked this thing. I do like seeing it pull down and hold. I know that somebody still has a big old position long on these things on some contracts, but uh, the chart is just not looking excellent, really. You know, we need to see a bounce held on some good volume. This is the opposite of what you want to see on the beginning of a bounce. You know, this is a failed bounce thus far. So I'd tread lightly there. You bought an Apple 230 call. Well, I mean, who knows? You got some days. You're only $4 out. It all depends what this thing wants to do, but you're going to need a move for those things to pay. You always want to be careful swinging, you know, something $5 out of the money on Apple. You got to be careful doing that. Wow. I forgot about the FedEx mega gap. I hadn't seen one of those in a while. Making it pretty easy on us. Those dips to 290. Let's check a little bit more info here. Those dips down to 290 likely want to push you up to that 300. I wonder if we got any other shipping earnings. They had just like yeah, they had a good one. Had a good one. Looking pretty good. I mean, this is really where I would want to be taking it. Wide stop would be really a breakdown of this 288. Looser or tighter stop would be 290, something, you know, somewhere right around there for me. But a perfectly reasonable place to take a stab if we can open somewhere around that 290, 291 area. Gale with the arm, that thing's just a beast, yeah. And that's the only level you need to care about for now. Can it hold the breakout? Buy those dips all the way down to the breakout. As far as what I might be looking for see. Ultimate target for me would likely be that 195 on just that super extension off of this retrace, you know. I mean, this thing just really likes to do the over 100% move on the retrace. And so I just went from this high to what ended up being the low, that after that we set a slightly higher low. So to me, that's the low. And so really that 195 would be a nice target. Obviously, you got to watch 190 whole numbers. You're up here at all-time highs, so those whole numbers could be tricky. But I think that's a nice one. Nice eye, Gail. Love it. Noodle, she did something super high. I don't remember. It was like 135 or something. Meta, man, I can't believe I sold my shares. Unfortunate. I bought this meta dip and then I sold them somewhere around here. What a move, Meta. What would I be targeting on Meta? I'd probably do something pretty similar to what I did over here. Where's that gonna put us? 600. I mean, all signs point to 600 eventually, but this ain't going straight there. But all signs to me are gonna be pointing to 600 sooner than later. Definitely not short. I have like no interest short until that thing's below like 500, honestly, too. I mean, scalps, whatever, day trades are fine, but buying the dip on Meta just been working too dang good. Yeah, that thing's a beast. I like that. Nike. I don't like Nike. Let's get Nike back down to 90, 87 area, and we can try a double bottom, but that's it for me. Yeah, Lambos, I don't know. SMSI, I got no interest for me. I mean, it's probably gonna put up it's probably gonna, do some like pre-earnings release craziness or something stupid again, but we'll see. Yeah, right, Noodle. Micron just disappointing people. But yeah, my dad got smoked on it. He tried to trade some, he's down. Mara. Well, Mara's not gonna be opening here. It's gonna be opening. I mean, I like the dip buy on Mara at this 200 day. Let's see if we can get a pull down to there. If Bitcoin keeps doing what it's doing, I bet we'll get that dip on Mara. Trying to take the bounce here, but uh Mara, I'm not like I'm not a buyer here, that's for sure. Like, but miners are doing as we like basically expected, or at least I had been preaching to people. The second those ETFs came out, why would big money own a miner? I've compared it to the gold trade. The gold miners always lag they always lag the gold move, and they frequently never match it, even percentage wise, none of that. And so to me, that's where I kind of think the miners will end up. I think they'll still be plenty tradable, still have that nice high IV so we can trade them and make a few bucks. But I'd want to see some pullbacks on this thing before I buy it. You can try the trend break, but without some strength out of Bitcoin, you ain't gonna get that. Yeah, Nick, thank you. Nike, we just talked. Gail, thank you. What caused that meta move? I don't know, man. People clicking the buy button. Was there news on it? I don't remember if there was any like meta news or anything that day. What was it? It would have been like the 5th. X getting in trouble. That's it. Nothing. I think people are just buying it. Okay, well, right on. Thank you all. Wow, we still got 50 of you. We had like 80 people in here at one point. That was pretty cool, man. Thank you everybody so much. Still got 50 of you stuck it out late with me. You all are awesome. Big shout out to everybody who's always here. Shout out to the new members who came to the class. This is what OOT is all about. Hopefully teaching you to be better traders. And thank you everybody. This is Noodle. This is what we love to see in these classes. We used to get 80 people a lot, and so having 80 of you in here, that's just awesome. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your night. Again, for all the new people, if you don't know, feel free to send me a DM if you ever have any questions or anything. Super happy to help. Send me trade ideas, whatever it may be. And with that, we will call it a night. We did cover NVIDIA. NVIDIA's in a range. Quit trying to catch that breakout until the breakout comes. But as far as we're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, I'm short at 129, stops over 130, and I'm long at basically 119, stops below 117.50-ish. Yeah, thank you, everybody. You all are awesome. Have an awesome rest of your night, and thank you for being here. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Happy to do it. Okay, everyone, have a good night. We'll catch y'all tomorrow.